Good evening, everyone. You welcome to the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. In our top stories, continuous or repeated Boko Haram attacks and hostilities in the far north region of the country, who the minister delegates in the presidency of the Republic in charge of defense, Joseph Beti Asomo, he is there for a 2-day working visit. He is taking stock of operations to protect the population, also to re-mobilize, re-galvanize, as well as to ensure that or re-strategize on ways to curb Boko Haram insurgency. The minister delegate in charge of defense, Joseph Beti Asomo, is in the far north region at the time when Boko Haram fighters recently, that was on Saturday, carried out an attack that left 12 defense and security elements dead. We also talk about the Human Rights Working Group Amnesty International that has condemned continuous atrocities and abuses being committed in the two English-speaking regions of the country by armed groups and the military. Amnesty International says its report published on the 28th of July 2021 is based on testimonies given by the population and satellite images. It is calling on the international community to mount pressure on the government of Cameroon to initiate an independent, impartial investigation for culprits to be held accountable. We as well talk about an accident that occurred at the La Falaise Dembe, that's in the chief town of the Adamawa region, notably in Gaoundéré, claiming 4 lives, amongst them a 3-year-old child. Those were top stories. Good evening once again. You're welcome to join us on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. We begin with this accident to say blood has once more spilled on one of Cameroon's national highways. An accident early this Wednesday, July 28, at the La Falaise Dembe, not far from Gaoundéré, chief town of the Adamawa region, has claimed the lives of 4 persons, amongst them a 3-year-old child, an 18-year-old student, and 2 adults of the ages 55 and 70. The injured, 31 in number, have been hospitalized at the Gaoundéré Regional Hospital. The accident involves a 70-seater interurban transport bus of the Danai Express. Sources say overspeeding is at the origin of this accident. The driver of the bus with the bus with a matriculation plate number Littoral 6588Z lost control of the bus, drove off the highway and ended its course in 2 trees. The 70-seater bus left in Gaoundéré, Adamawa region, and was heading to Marwa in the far north region. Investigation to get more information to this accident is on course. We stay in the far north region of the country to talk about constant Boko Haram attacks and hostilities, which have now wooed the minister delegates in the presidency of the Republic in charge of defense, Joseph Beti Asomo, who on high instruction of the head of state, commander-in-chief of the armed forces, has begun a 2-day working visit in Marwa. The visit that started this Wednesday, July 28, to end on Thursday, 29, aims at taking stock of operations to protect the inhabitants, as well as the preservation of the territorial integrity of the far north region. His visits comes at a time when Boko Haram fighters attacked a control post in Zege, a locality in the Logona Shari division, on Saturday, killing at least 13 soldiers and wounding many, now hospitalized in the Marwa military hospital. Several assailants were also neutralized by the defense and security forces. It should be noted the defense boss is also in the far north region to remobilize and re-galvanize troops and re-strategize on ways to protect people and their goals and to preserve the region's integrity. Last week, the Minister of Defense was in the West region of Cameroon for similar exercise. And now, the Human Rights Working Group Amnesty International, in its new report published today, July 28, 2021, accuses armed groups and the military for causing the populations of the northwest and southwest regions to bleed since escalation of the Anglophone crisis to an armed conflict. This through their numerous rights violations and abuses. Amnesty International says it published this report based on testimonies from the population and satellite images. While condemning these atrocities and abuses, Amnesty International recommends to the Cameroonian authorities to show its will or responsibility to protect the population of the two English-speaking regions indiscriminately and accept a fact-finding mission. The African Commission on Human and People's Rights has been calling 3 years ago. The rights group urges the international community to publicly call on Cameroonian authorities to urgently initiate a thorough, independent, impartial investigation into the allegations of human rights violations and the culprits judged and punished heavily. Also, that the international community must ensure that the humanitarian response aims at addressing the needs of those affected by the violence, including refugees and internally displaced persons, is adequately funded. We take you to the northwest region of the country to talk about a 12-year-old girl, Esther, who is in pain after an accident. A northwest regional correspondent, Mo Stella, says her situation is critical after she fell and injured her leg, and notably her knee, and she is in need of help. Her report.
A painful experience for this little girl. Moving her body from one place to another is a nightmare. Her name is Esther, and this is her mother, Alice. Alice is a widow living with her children in this house at Alakoro, a neighborhood in Bamenda 2 subdivision. It is a family that farms for a living. They sell some of their farm produce, and this is how they get money for food on daily basis and painkillers for Esther. Esther is going through terrible pains. She says this all started in November 2020 with her slipping off on her way to take her bath. They thought it was a simple fall, but weeks later, the situation grew from bad to worst.
After 2 weeks, it got swollen and they take me to the hospital and make an x-ray. I came back. The next week, they take me to the hospital again. Before they took it, I removed blood and water there. They gave the medicine I drink. The leg went down a bit after it got swollen again.
Her mother was told that the leg of Esther will be amputated, but she never agreed. She then turned to traditional medicine, but nothing has changed. Esther is still in pains as the left knee remains swollen. Alice has run out of money to pay for her daughter's treatment. She now buys painkillers by the roadside to ease the pains Esther feels.
If I be get money, I for take it go, make them put it whether na drip or they give some medicine them again for the taker for the time.
Esther is 12 years old. She was in primary 2 when the conflict in Anglophone Cameroon began. She is amongst the hundreds of thousands of children left out of school. Just when she was about to resume, then the accident. She now walks with the help of these crutches made for her by her mother. They are requesting for help that will enable Esther seek medical attention.
I'm feeling a lot of pain. I want to have my leg back. Please, the one that are listening, the one that are watching, please help me.
All they want is for Esther to be on her feet, and instead of shedding tears of pain, tears of joy will fill their house.
That was a sad incident of a 12-year-old girl, Esther, there recounting what she went through and now in need of help in order to regain her leg. That report was compiled by Mbu Stella. Time for us to take you to the Nyonkele division of the central region of the country, notably in a Sika, where some councillors have insisted that their mayor, Sylvain Moise, must leave his position. The stance of these councillors was maintained during the council session that was chaired by Peter Intie, as a divisional officer of the Nyonkele division of the Central Region. Simanjukan Gabriel has more.
The council session of the Ezeka Council, which was meant to vote the management and administrative accounts budget of the council, ended in a limbo as some councillors denying to sign the final document. These councillors say they had passed a vote of no confidence to Mayor Sylvain Moïse Chok.
Nous vous avons saisi pour le retrait de confiance à M. le maire.
We informed you about our lack of confidence in the way you managed the council during the December session. You told us an extraordinary session will be held in March 2021 to address our problem, but you lied to us and you are back in command.
Vous êtes revenu à la charge quand vous avez constaté que l'harmonie n'est pas revenue pour vous-même.
The session that had a 3-point agenda had a point that councillors were supposed to remove the vote of no confidence given to the mayor. Out of the 25 councillors, just 11 signed the document, while 14 still want the mayor to leave his office. Notwithstanding the hold-up, a management and administrative account was voted with some mistakes at the level of figures presented to the councillors. Certain things were there and we had time to effectively appreciate the work. Unfortunately, we discovered that at the level of numbers, there was no work done. We expect that will be adjusted. The Ezeka Council session was chaired by the Senior Divisional Officer of Nyonkele Division, Peter Ntiende.
And on to sports, the football family in Cameroon and Bafmen community in particular has been shocked by a decision from the Sydney, Australian-based Kuma Edison to resign from the position of president of Bafmen United Football Academy, Bufa. Sir Edison Kuma, who just came into Cameroon from Australia, has been extremely preoccupied with Bufa sporting activities, moving with a team to play matches in Bamenda with the security context, Banjul in the west region of the country and other places before releasing the shocking news. Though his reasons have not yet been made public, Equinoxe findings and chart with him revealed that the great developer of Bafmen and the CEO of KEF, Mr. Kuma Edison, has been a target of blackmails and attacks from some individuals lately, which even saw him hospitalized briefly. His doctors in the medical team in Australia and Cameroon advised him to peep down on his activities and commitments. For this very reason, he says the launch of the Kuma Edison Foundation KEF built for this weekend in Bonaberry had to be moved to Saturday, 7th July. That's the 27th of July 2021, as demanded by his senior advisors. He is the only president who has succeeded to bring the club Bufa to the level of the National League 2 Championship in Cameroon since the creation of Bafmen United Football Academy. Up next, Talking Points. Good evening once again. You're welcome to Talking Points. We're having today as guest Dr. Dimancho Michael. He is a political analyst. Good evening, Doctor. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, Innocent Azeh. It's a pleasure to be here once again. Thank you so much for inviting me.
to talk certainly about issues hitting the nation. This time around, let's first of all talk about the visits of the minister delegates in the presidency of the Republic in charge of defense, Joseph Betsia Asomo, in the far north region of the country. At the time when elements of the National Defense and Security Forces have been killed again by Boko Haram insurgents. How do you analyze the continuous and repeated successful attacks from this group?
Like a Frenchman would say, a graph, and I think that it is high time something be done. Of course, the minister delegate has to go, and we are asking ourselves why only the minister delegate. We actually mean the chief commander of the armed forces to get to this region and actually see the situation for himself. We feel that constantly delegating people to these places shows that it gives the impression that it is not as serious as it seems. But we are saying that it is a very, very serious issue already that calls for a national attention. And if there's anybody still sleeping somewhere and thinking that it's a play or, it's a joke, then we really need to have a rethink about our our interest or our love for our country, because we realize that the country is going through untold troubles and our country is being attacked by enemies of the country, and it is high time the chief commander of the armed forces sits up and hits his hand on the table and says enough is enough.
Are you saying that the Minister of Defense is not competent to be in the far north region and other regions to check the military operations, to re-mobilize, to re-galvanize troops and re-strategize on how to combat the enemies?
I think that the Minister of Defense has always done that. It is not a new thing. But you know that when something has reached a certain degree, we expect a certain attention to that particular issue. And that attention that we are calling for now should have been the attention of really the head of state actually getting to this zone to let us know that it is really high time this issue be solved. We have seen that in other countries, even in Chad. When the insurgents were so much encroaching on Chad, the president, Idris had to go to the war front himself. You think he didn't have a minister delegate? There were people who could go to the war front, but he himself feels that he is carrying the country on his head. And it is not a play that you are ruling the whole country. In times like this, in difficult times like this, it is the time that we see the love, the loyalty, and that, in Article 5 of the Cameroon Constitution, the President of the Republic is the guarantor of the peace and security of the country. It means that in times like this, it is a moment that we actually see how the President of the Republic, with that oath of office that he took to actually honor his words, he has to be able to hit his hand, and not only hit his hand, he has to be able to face the situation head on. Head on. It is not by proxies. He has to face the situation. Let Cameroonians know that he's actually carrying them on his head.
But Cameroonians love their presidents. Do you want something to happen at the war front? You remember what happened with Idris Deby for going at the war front.
I don't think that I should be able to teach some kind of governance here to high level personalities like the President of the Republic. You realize that every leader is supposed to be what I call a pelican. A pelican is that bird that wounds itself to feed its young. It means that what? In very, very difficult situation, in times of drought, in times of when there's no water, when there is no food, it is the head that suffers. It is the mother of the child that suffers. They are not the children that suffer. I don't think that the people of Cameroon will be keeping their president, because they are afraid that he goes to the war front, like what happened to the other president or President. I think that the president of Cameroon took an oath of office, and that oath of office was to serve the people of Cameroon selflessly in times of trouble, in times of war. And added to that, I keep on emphasizing on the fact that he is the chief of the armed forces, and therefore, being the chief of the armed forces, you're supposed to be somebody who is courageous. You're supposed to be somebody who is selfless. You're supposed to be somebody to face situations when the situations come And I think that your service to the nation is supposed to be unconditional. Be in times of war, be in times of drought, be in times of trouble that enemies attacking the country. You are supposed to show your head first.
I guess the information has reached Yaoundé. Now, let's dive onto something else since we have just limited time. Now, we're looking at the reports of Amnesty International, a human rights working group that is accusing the armed groups in the two English-speaking regions of the country, as well as the military, for continuous gross human rights violations and abuses. And it is noting in its July 28, 2021 report that they've compiled testimonies of victims as well as satellite images. How do you analyze this outing? You certainly read through that report.
I think that there's what they call, people call, a Frenchman call a cliche. A cliche is something that you have oversaid. You know, you say time and time again and you keep on saying the same thing. I think that this report on human rights violation in the Northwest and Southwest region is already a cliche. This is something
like it's not new.
It's not new. I mean, there is nothing new in that report. On the contrary, I rather think that this war in the Northwest and Southwest is underreported. It is underreported. They are not reporting the war enough. And I think that, I mean, when in 2019, when a baby was shot in Muyoka at close range, when in 2020, when we had the Ngabu massacre of about 21 people, when in 2021, when we had children in Kumba and Francisca, I mean, how do you want us to enumerate that? There are a lot of unreported issues of this nation. There are a lot of unreported deaths. Even the human rights reports that we are having, the Amnesty report that we are having now, it is still not up to 30% of what is going on in the Northwest and Southwest region. I remember in that report they have even said, I mean, there are places that they are not able to reach, their access. It means that what? They depend much more on some of those satellite images to be able to give their report. But let me tell you that accessibility to get reports on this crisis, it has been a problem. If not, you are going to have much more gruesome reports of issues of this nature. We are already at the situation of a war whereby you find many people are dying. It is not just about physical killing already. Let me tell you, there's also intellectual killing, which people are not talking about. When you have people, children who are not able to go to school, that is killing. There's moral killing, of course. When people are not able to freely exercise their faith, it is also killing. And therefore, most of them are only limited on the issue of physical killing, which of course, because we see the images and they're gruesome to us. We are saying that the war it's already a war. It's more what we're calling the crisis. It is a war in the North and Southwest region where the military people are being killed, where the Amber boys are being killed, and worst of all, they are the civilians who are caught between the fires, the cross fires. And it is the worst kind of a situation that anybody should imagine. That you are living and you are partly living, and that you are living, and to see the next day does not depend any longer on God. It depends on either the Amber boys or on the military. I mean, it is a serious issue.
Thank you so much, Dr. G. Mancho Michael, for coming.
Thanks so much, Enos and Aze.
And it's always a pleasure to have you to hit on hot issues like that affecting our country, and we'll always be delighted to have you here.
It will be a pleasure to be able to enlighten Cameroonians and talk about the burning issues in our country. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Okay, the time is short, but we'll always share the little we have with you, dear viewers. We want to thank you so much for being part of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. Thanks so much. To have a splendid evening.